Elements, compounds, and mixtures. Those are three different types of matter that exist in our world. Elements. Elements are actually the symbol of matter. An element just consists of one element, like I have platinum right here. So anything you see on the periodic table, if any of those elements is by itself, then that is going to just be an element. It's not any more complex than that. And that is like the building blocks of matter are element, or the only other thing that could be considered an element was if you have two of the same element combined. For example, oxygen gas, the formula for oxygen gas is O2. And because it's two oxygens that are combined, that is still going to be considered an element. If you were to see a picture of an element, like if you could look through a microscope, this is my drawing of a little microscope here, and you could see an image of an element, it would just look like all the same. I know these aren't going to be perfect, but they're all blue and they're all supposed to be like circular, oval. You know, I'm doing my best. This is what an element would look like. It would just be a bunch of the same thing all under the microscope. So that is an element. A compound, that is a slightly more complex form of matter. This is when two or more different elements become stuck together. An example of this would be water, H2O. There's two hydrogens. I actually have a picture of H2O right here. Two hydrogens and one oxygen combine to form a compound, which is water. These cannot be separated physically. Absolutely cannot be separated physically. By physically, I mean you could not physically separate the hydrogen and oxygen in water. But they can be separated chemically. So you can actually chemically go through and separate compounds. So that is a compound. If you were to see a compound under a microscope, it would be something like this. So we'll say that the red here represents oxygen. So we'll do a bunch of oxygens here. We'll actually just do 3 for time's sake. So we'll do 3 oxygens right there. And we'll say the blue represents hydrogen. And so there would be 2 hydrogens combined to each one of these oxygens. So a compound you're always going to be able to recognize under a microscope because there's going to be 2 different elements that are combined. So you can see the oxygen and excuse me, the hydrogen combined there. Lastly, we have mixtures. A mixture is when elements and compounds are mixed together. You can see the picture of it right here. You can see the purple are compounds, and you can see the green are elements, and they're all mixed together. These can be separated physically. So you could actually physically separate these. You could physically separate mixtures. So if you were going to look at a mixture under a microscope, it would look something like the image that's already up there for you, but I'll go ahead and hand draw one just because my hand drawings are so excellent. So we would have our waters here. I'll draw like 3 waters. So we have our red with our blue combined with it. Just draw those little things right there. So we have our compounds, our water, and we'll say that that is mixed, excuse me, sorry about that. We'll say that that is mixed with some nitrogen, and nitrogen will represent as green. And nitrogen's an element, so they're all going to look the same, just these little green dots. So anytime you see compound mixed with an element, that is going to be a mixture. So those are our 3 different types of matter right there: element, compound, and mixture. Now, some different examples here to see if you can identify. So I would pause the video and go through just on the basic examples we just did and see if you can identify these different things as compounds, elements, or mixtures. So pause. Okay, so hopefully you pause the video. I'm just going to label them with 1 letter each. So first we have nitrogen gas, N2. It's 2 of the same element. So those are just going to be considered elements. Sand is silicon dioxide, which means it's SiO2. So we have 2 different elements coming together, so that is going to be a compound. Air, this is one that really slips people up. A lot of times you think the air is just oxygen gas, things like that. we need the oxygen gas in the air, but it's actually a mix of nitrogen, oxygen, neon, carbon dioxide, and other tiny gases. Well, you see here, these three are all elements, but then carbon dioxide is a compound. So what that means is this air is actually a mixture. Chlorine by itself, put it in pools, clean the water. That is going to be an element. And then magnesium oxide, which is MgO, because it is two elements that are combined, that is going to be a compound. So hopefully you got those. There's some images down here at the bottom. This right here, I'll just put in blue. I'll put the elements in blue. This would be an element because they are two of the same. This would be an element. This would be an element, all because they are two of the same. Compounds I'll put in red, match the C's up here. Compound, compound, and I believe those are our only compounds. Mixture, we have two different elements mixing together, so that'd be a mixture. Here we have some different compounds mixing together, so that would be a mixture. And here we have some different compounds mixing together, so that would be a mixture. So there's some images. So that is elements, compounds, and mixtures. They are all types of matter that are around us every day. So that's awesome. Good luck and farewell.